Hey guys, Brandon at LS4 King. Today we're introducing a new product, and we're also talking about the infamous LS4 Belt Tensioner assemblies. These pieces of junk. So if you've owned an LS4 for a while, you probably recognize this component. They are prone to failure. And to add insult to injury, GM, AC Delco, all the aftermarket subsidiaries have discontinued this. You cannot get belt tensioners for the factory LS4 cars anymore, which is leaving quite a few guys in the community in a pickle, because if that fails, they can't get the belt on their car, therefore they can't run their water pump, their AC compressor, none of their accessories, so it renders the vehicle virtually useless, right? So I don't know why GM discontinued these. All I know is I've been waiting a long time, since last winter when they did, for somebody to start making them again. Nobody did, so we took it upon ourselves to come up with a solution. But I want to start by talking about what fails on these. So, obviously LS4 cars are approaching 20 years old now. These backing plates are often corroded, ears break off, spring locations break off. I mean, this is under a lot of tension at all times. The pivot point for the plate with the tensioner is not a sealed assembly, so corrosion does get in here. It restricts this plate from rotating the way it was intended to. The springs break clean off, like I'd mentioned previously. It's just a really poor design. And one of the worst things is when this is in the vehicle, you can't even access the square drive to release tension on the belt because it hits the frame rail. It's too close on the LS4s. So we'll talk about that a little bit more after. Guys do all sorts of crazy stuff, like using hose clamps to compress these in the car just to change their belt. Hopefully those days are over with my new solution. So let's come over here and take a look at what we've got. So my tensioner assemblies start life as a Gen 5 tensioner, Gen 5 LT tensioner. And then we modify them with a billet backing plate, a 6-rib idler pulley. All the hardware is put together to mimic the factory alignment. It does change the belt routing slightly, which we include a new diagram with every one of these tensioners, as well as the belt and the mounting hardware. But super nice design, real easy to operate in the vehicle. And the best part is you don't have to drop the subframe to change this. If you've got some patience and some hand tools, you can get that old piece of crap out and you can get the new one in the vehicle without dropping the subframe. And the best part is you don't need any crazy hacks to release tension on the serpentine belt. Literally all you need is a 15 millimeter. You can come back over to your tensioner. This bolt right here is reverse threaded. You put your 15 on, which actually fits in the car. You crank it down and the tension comes off the belt. How great is that? No more hose clamp tricks or jacking up the car in relation to the tensioner with pry bars holding it. You don't have to do any of that nonsense anymore. Fits super nice. Plenty of clearance for the transmission and the drive shaft, or the axle rather. Nothing protrudes from this area. Good clearance on the back of the block. This is definitely the best package solution I think I could have come up with for this application. It would be virtually impossible for me to show you how to change that in the car. So I'm going to run through a couple pointers here on the bench and explaining the process to get this off. So pull your car into your garage or your driveway, wherever you're working. First thing you want to do is disconnect the battery. Once the battery is disconnected, we're going to move over to the alternator. We're going to take the electrical connector off and the positive power wire. Now we've eliminated our electrical connections. We need to release tension on here. I'm not even going to highlight that. It's so archaic what we have to do to get this free. If you don't know, there's plenty of videos online. There's a bunch of different hacks for using a pry bar against a frame rail to compress the spring. I'll let you decide what method you want to use. But in the car, you got to get tension off the belt, right? So compress the spring goes down, arm moves up, tension comes off. Once the belt is removed, now you can take your alternator off. Once the alternator is out of the way, the alternator bracket should come off. Removing this will definitely open up a ton of real estate here for your installation in the car. So to get the alternator bracket off, you take this smooth idler off. It's a 15 millimeter bolt. You have 4 more 15s holding the alternator bracket to the cylinder head. That will come off and it will expose the back of the cylinder head and the lower half of the block where you can actually get your hands in to work. So from the top, you can access this 15mm bolt, and you can remove a 15mm here that holds one of the power steering lines in place. If you take your wheel off inside of, underneath the car, you can get this 15mm off by using a box wrench up through the frame rail. And this 15 comes into the side of the block right here. But the axle is very close in relation to it. So, or I'm sorry, 15's down here. It's very close to the axle. So you can get this bolt out in the vehicle as well. You're probably gonna end up doing it with a box wrench, just warning you. But once that's done, this piece of junk's out of the way, and you made room for your brand new tensioner, which is super simple installation. Two 15mm bolts that we supply, goes right into pre-existing bosses in the block that your old belt tensioner used. Same bolt hole locations. From there, it's a matter of following our diagram to route the new belt into your back in action. No more having an LS4 lawn ornament. Again, this is very close to the frame rail, but you can access this in car with a 15mm serpentine wrench tool to release tension off the belt. Belts are available in the parts store, but we do include them with our kits. This is the real deal. I'm hoping this makes everybody's ownership of the LS4 cars a little bit more manageable, and hopefully keeps these cars out of the junkyard and we are no longer held hostage to these pieces of junk. Hope you guys found the video interesting. These will be up on the website shortly. I'm going to be building a ton of them because I know it's a high demand item, so there will be no wait on them. If you have any questions or concerns, just email sales@ls4king.com. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.